Nkechi began to speak. God, I don't know if you're listening, but I'm here. I'm not asking for anything today. I just want to talk to you, to be with you. I'm sorry for treating you like a vending machine, for coming to you only when I needed something. I want to know you better, to love you for whom you are, not just for what you can do for me. Nkechi sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling, as if the answers to her life problems were etched in the cracks of the plaster. Her life had once been perfect, so it seemed. She had married her longtime boyfriend, Emeka, a man who had once been the light of her world. Together, they had 2 beautiful children and a comfortable life in the city of Lagos, Nigeria, where she worked as a senior marketing executive for a multinational company. But somewhere along the way, the cracks in her life had started to show. It began with little things. Emeka coming home late more often, the unspoken tension that hung between them like a dark cloud, the exhaustion that came from balancing work and family. At first, she shoved it off as the natural ebbs and flow of marriage. After all, no relationship was perfect. Then the real challenges began. Emeka lost his job at the oil company where he had worked for over a decade. The news came like a thunderbolt on a sunny day, unexpected and devastating. Overnight, their roles had switched. Nkechi became the sole breadwinner, a position she had never imagined she would be in. Emeka, once so full of life, became withdrawn and irritable. He lashed out at her over the smallest things. The frustration of his unemployment gnawing at his spirit. At work, things weren't any better. The once vibrant office had become a battlefield. The company was restructuring and everyone was on edge, fearful of the impending layoffs. Nkechi's workload had doubled as she took on the responsibilities of those who had already been let go. She barely had time to catch her breath between meetings, reports, and the endless streams of emails demanding her attention. And there was her personal life. Nkechi had always been close to her mother, a strong woman who had raised 5 children on her own after their father's demise. But lately, even that relationship had become strained. Her mother, now battling age and health issues, had grown increasingly dependent on Nkechi, adding yet another layer of stress to her already burdened life. Nkechi felt like she was drowning in her responsibilities, each day drawing her further under the waves. She was angry, exhausted, and completely overwhelmed. But most of all, she felt utterly alone. Her colleagues at work had noticed the changes in her. Nkechi, once the life of the office, had become withdrawn and distant. She no longer joined in the lunchtime banter or stayed late to chat with friends after work. She comes in, did her job and left. Even her appearance had changed. The carefully applied makeups and stylish outfit had given way to a more disheveled, tired version of herself. One colleague in particular took note of Nkechi's transformation. Adobe had always admired Nkechi's work ethic and the way she seemed to balance everything so effortlessly. But now, Adaobi saw through the cracks and recognized the pain hiding behind Nkechi's strange smile. One afternoon, after a grueling meeting, Adaobi approached Nkechi in the break room. "Hi Nkechi, how are you?" she asked gently, placing her hands on Nkechi's shoulder. Nkechi forced a smile. "I'm fine, Ada, just tired, that's all." But Adaobi wasn't convinced. "You don't seem fine. You have been so quiet lately and have noticed that you are not yourself. If there's anything you want to talk about, I'm here for you." For a moment, Nkechi hesitated. The urge to spill everything, to unburden herself of the weight she had been carrying was strong. But she had always been a private person, and the thought of opening up about her struggles was terrifying. "Thank you, Ada, but I'm really okay. Just a lot of work stress," she said, trying to brush off the concern. Adaobi nodded. "But don't push further, all right. But if you ever need to talk, I'm here." Nkechi appreciated the offer, but felt that talking wouldn't change anything. How could it? The challenges in her marriage, at work, and in her personal life were real and tangible. What good would talking do? Days turned into weeks, and Nkechi's situation only worsened. Her marriage continued to deteriorate, with Emeka withdrawing further into his shell. They barely spoke anymore, and when they did, it was only to argue. The tension in their home was palpable, and Nkechi often found herself dreading going back home at the end of the day. At work, the pressure was relentless. Her performance had started to slip, and she was constantly worried about being the next to be laid off. The fear gnawed at her, keeping her up at night and making it impossible to focus during the day. One day, after a particularly bad fight with Emeka, Nkechi reached her breaking point. She sat in her car in the office parking lot, tears streaming down her face. She felt like she was at the end of her rope, with no way out. Adaobi happened to be walking by and saw Nkechi in her car, clearly upset. Without hesitation, Adaobi opened the car door and slid into the passenger seat. "Nkechi, what's going on?" "You can't keep this all inside," Adaobi said, her voice full of concern. Nkechi tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She had held everything in for so long that it felt impossible to let it all out now. But as Adaobi sat there, quietly waiting, something inside her broke. The dam that had been holding back all her pain, frustration, and fear finally gave way. Through sobs, Nkechi told Adaobi everything. She spoke about Emeka's job loss, the strain it has put on their marriage, her fear of losing her job, the pressure of caring for her aging mother. She talked about how she felt like she was failing in every aspect of her life and how she had lost all hopes. Adaobi listened quietly, not interrupting, just letting Nkechi pour out her heart. When Nkechi had finished, Adaobi reached out and took her hand. "Nkechi, I'm so sorry you have been going through all this. But you don't have to carry this burden alone," she said softly, Nkechi shook her head. What can anyone do, Ada? What can anyone do? I have even prayed. I've asked God for help, but nothing has changed. I feel like He has abandoned me. Adaobi smiled gently. You know, sometimes we expect God to work in certain ways, and when He doesn't, we think He's not listening. But maybe it's not about what we want or how we expect Him to answer. Maybe it's about trusting Him, even when things don't make sense. Nkechi sighed. I don't know, Ada. I have trusted Him before, but He didn't come through. It seems like I'm on my own. Adaobi chuckled, surprising Nkechi. You know, Nkechi, there is a difference between trusting God because you want something from Him and trusting Him because you love Him. When you love Him for who He is, not just for what He can do for you, that's when you really start to experience His peace. Nkechi stared at her, unsure of what to say. The idea was foreign to her. She had always prayed and trusted God with the hope that He would fix her problems. But to trust Him just for the sake of love, it seemed so simple yet difficult. Adaobi continued, I am not saying it's easy, but maybe it's worth trying. Just give it a shot without expecting anything in return. You'll be amazed at what happens. Nkechi couldn't stop thinking about Adaobi's words. That night, after putting her children to bed, she sat in her room, staring at the corner where her Bible and prayer journal had gathered dust. She felt a tug on her heart, a gentle nudge that she couldn't ignore. Taking a deep breath, she decided to take Adaobi's advice. She cleared a small space in her room, setting up a chair and a little table with her Bible and journal. It wasn't much, but it was a start. This would be her date spot, a place where she would sit and talk to God, not just to ask for things, but to simply be with Him. For a moment, she didn't know what to say, but then she remembered something her mother used to tell her as a child. God is your friend, Nkechi. You can talk to Him about anything, just like you would with a friend. Taking a deep breath, Nkechi began to speak. God, I don't know if you're listening, but I'm here. I'm not asking for anything today. I just want to talk to you, to be with you. I'm sorry for treating you like a vending machine, for coming to you only when I needed something. I want to know you better, to love you for whom you are, not just for what you can do for me. First, it felt awkward. She wasn't used to praying without a specific request in mind. But she pushed through the discomfort, opening her heart to God in a way she hadn't done for years. She told Him about her fears, her struggles, and her pain. But she also told Him about her hopes and dreams and her desires to feel close to Him again. Day by day, she returned to that spot, sometimes with words, sometimes in silence. She began to read her Bible again, not just skimming through the pages, but really soaking in the words. And slowly, something began to shift inside her. She couldn't explain it, but she started to feel lighter, as if the weight on her shoulders was gradually being lifted. There was no drastic change in her circumstances. Emeka was still out of work. Her job was still stressful. Her mother's health was still declining. But Nkechi found herself smiling more, feeling more at peace. Her colleagues at work noticed the change too. Adaobi in particular was thrilled to see Nkechi slowly returning to her old self. They began to spend more time together, often talking about God during lunch breaks.